This is Zanae Brooks, and I'm with Senator Fady Qaddoura. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about Senator Fady and his background and state finances. So if you could just maybe give us a little intro about yourself and then how you got to this point.
Thank you. Well, good morning, and I appreciate you for having me. I'm a public servant at heart. My life experiences led me to where I'm at today. I'm a proud American citizen, proud immigrant who came to the United States after high school, worked extremely hard, lived in the South where I pursued a bachelor's and master's in computer science. And then after Hurricane Katrina, my family and I experienced homelessness, and we had to rebuild from scratch in Houston, Texas. That led to a new journey by which I wanted to change focus in my life on public service from computer science after the amazing large-scale philanthropy that I saw when tens of thousands of volunteers came to Houston and to the South to help the evacuees. So from that point, I pursued a new path in life where I came to IU, finished a master's in public administration and a PhD in public policy and philanthropy, worked for several state agencies, most prominently the Family and Social Services Administration, where I helped with the expansion of the Healthy Indiana Plan 2.0 or the Affordable Care Act in Indiana, and then served as the city controller or the CFO for the city of Indianapolis. Ran for office in 2020. I represent Senate District 30, which is the north side of Indianapolis and south side of Hamilton County. I serve on all 7 committees, including the Appropriations Committee, Labor and Pensions, Family and Children's Services, Education, Subcommittee on School Funding, and Elections. In addition to other summer study committees and standing committees, such as the Budget Committee, which is different from the Appropriations Committee. But it's been an honor to be a public servant. It's my life calling, it's my purpose, it's my mission, it's what keeps me going. And I just hope that I can continue to add value so that every Hoosier living in our state can feel that they are treated with love, respect, compassion, and they are given the resources to reach their full potential.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So you mentioned a little bit about like the Appropriations Committee and the Budget Committees. And then you were the city's controller. So would you say like you're a numbers guy, or how'd you get into those specific committees and roles?
Absolutely. So given my services in the finance field, and in my professional life, I serve as a CFO and Chief Innovation Officer for a statewide nonprofit organization. So finance is a field that I worked in for years. I enjoy it because I firmly believe that funding is critical to influence public policy. And if we are able to invest appropriately in Hoosiers, and whether it's healthcare, education, infrastructure, public safety, you name it, then we can definitely improve the quality of life for all citizens. So the Appropriations Committee is a standing committee of the Senate. It meets only during session and is famously responsible for the biennium budget once every 2 years. But outside of session, every month we meet once a month somewhere in Indiana, where we travel the state to review the investments that the state has made in either projects or communities. And we also hold our business meetings in different communities and sometimes at the State House. But the goal of the Budget Committee, which is different from the Appropriations Committee, is basically to review statewide projects and investments after the budget passes. So we receive reports and testimony from state agencies, public universities that are funded by the state of Indiana, or any collaborations and partnerships that were funded by state dollars. So that's the relationship between these 2 committees.
Awesome. And then how would you describe the relationship, if any, between like the state's Board of Finance, which is the auditor, the treasurer, and the budget director, or even just the state budget agency?
So I think they play different roles, but they have to communicate. Under the governor's office, the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, is responsible for the budget and all fiscal matters under the executive branch. And then on the elected official side, by our constitution, these are constitutional offices, the auditor and the treasurer. They manage the state's investments and also the state transactions, financial transactions, whether they are payroll or payments and so on, accounts receivables and accounts payables and so on. So there should be a very collaborative relationship, because if there's a misalignment between what we pass in law versus what OMB oversees versus what the treasurer or the auditor oversee, then that creates a financial mess and chaos. So there should be always an alignment between the Board of Finance and the executive branch and the General Assembly.
Yeah, awesome. That's what I've been trying to communicate to people. Like this, running for these offices, the business of the state, they don't set policy like the auditor and treasurer don't, but they should be an extension of the legislator to make sure, the original intent, like everything is still in alignment, some transparency. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think even though the auditor's office and the treasurer's office tend to be transactional, however, they play a critical role in implementing policy. I'll give you one example. So for example, the distribution of infrastructure funding for the state of Indiana. Anytime someone shows up at the gas station, they fill their car with gas, the state collects gasoline use tax. That tax gets collected at the state level and then redistributed to counties based on an infrastructure formula. Well, for 10 years, for example, Indianapolis did not receive the appropriate level of funding because of miscommunication for 10 years between the governor's office and the auditor's office. So while the auditor's office and the treasurer's office tend to oversee millions of transactions annually, and they handle billions of dollars, which is a huge responsibility that requires integrity, trust, transparency, adherence to the law, but also any mistakes could be detrimental to some communities. That's why it's a critical office that you have to have competent people like you to lead and be able to bring that level of integrity and transparency and be sure that communities receive their fair share of state dollars.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's not an easy message to tell people when you're like, I'm a CPA, this is why this is important, the business of the state, and people are like, it's not really that important. I'm like, okay, but I had to even tell someone I sit on this board, and he said, well, this office is really not that important. I said, well, would you say the treasurer of your board is important role, or the CFO of a company? And he was like, yeah, that's the most important. And I'm like, same thing. Like if you're the auditor of the state or the treasurer of the state, this is the business operation of the state. So they are pretty important. So thank you for sharing your perspective there. One kind of on a lighter note, as long as you've been a public servant and you've served as, a senator and all of these governmental roles, what's the most rewarding part for you?
Interacting and working and serving constituents. It gives me the greatest pleasure to know that I can fix someone's issue or help them resolve a problem, whether it's by connecting them with a state agency and resolving an issue, or if their community or neighborhood is facing a challenge that I was able to resolve. I truly enjoy listening and working with constituents and then seeing the outcomes of my work and efforts in collaboration with others. I'll give you one example. In my Senate District 30, there is an apartment complex, for example, called Lakeside Point in Nora, and it is owned by an out-of-state negligent corporate landlord that was registered as a nonprofit organization. Hundreds of families were living in that apartment complex suffering from negligence, meaning mold was growing on the carpets, holes in the ceilings, buildings catching on fire, crime is going up. And even what made it even worse is that the corporate landlord, who was irresponsive and irresponsible, was collecting all of these utility dollars and rent from tenants, but never paid to the utility companies. So utilities were threatening to shut down water and electricity and so on. So I took on that case and worked with the Attorney General's office and the city of Indianapolis. We successfully filed the lawsuit. and that led to mediation. And the outcome of the entire process was that we were able to take the apartment complex from force the landlord, the negligent landlord, to sell to a private, more responsible entity that can take care of these individuals. Well, that triggered additional discussions, and we discovered that there were several additional properties owned by the same entity in Indiana outside of my district. And as of last week, the other 4 apartment complexes that were owned are now, there was a lawsuit, the lawsuit was settled. They will sell all of their properties to responsible folks. They will be banned from operating in the state of Indiana for at least 7 years. And part of the sale, they have to credit back the utilities and others in the city of Indianapolis for all expenses that the city incurred, such as paying utilities to keep the utilities going on. So I'm extremely proud of that type of work. Or on my work on the Appropriations Committee, I secured $60 million of funding to the next level trails. So in Senate District 30, now for the first time, we are able to fund the Nickel Plate Trail, which will be a reality in a couple of years. So these are the types of accomplishments that improve the quality of life for people. And I feel extremely rewarded and happy to know that I was able to add value to make someone's life a little bit better.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I think it's important that people understand how you can have like financial background, understand the money part, and how that really serves to impact communities and, like you said, people's quality of life, especially in Indiana. I think there have been some hard times. So understanding how money flows and how the state should be investing back into communities. So thank you for those examples. I think this has been great. Is there any last thing you want to share with folks?
Yeah, I think and you brought that point, which is budgets and finances must reflect our values. The budgets are not just simple documents of how we appropriate dollars. Budgets should be responsive to the needs of Hoosiers. And currently the state of Indiana is sitting on $6 billion of tax dollars from hardworking taxpayers. It's not fiscally responsible to stuff money in a mattress and call it fiscally responsible approach. I think one, we need to know, we need our budgets to reflect what Hoosiers want to see, including significant investments in our educational system, especially K through 12. We have a teacher shortage across the state and public school staff shortage that we shouldn't wait till the end of next year when the school year is done to fund that. We rank bottom 10 nationwide on healthcare, on infant mortality, on maternal mortality, on mental health, 47 in the nation on the quality of water and air, 42nd in the nation on workforce development. So while we have a good business environment and a good tax environment in Indiana to attract jobs and businesses, we have a problem of keeping people here in Indiana, and we have a problem of investing in the quality of life for people. So it's my commitment to work with you when you get elected and others to be sure that our budgets and our finances reflect our values and that they are responsive to the needs of all Hoosiers, corner to corner, zip code to zip code, so that we can become the best state in the nation.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate
Thank you so much, especially like as I'm going around talking, you are definitely one of the legislators' websites that I go on. And what does Senator Fady have to say about that? So smart, so much information. So thank you for everything.
I appreciate you.
And your transparency. It's very helpful. And I'm like, maybe it's just because I'm a nerd about these things, but I appreciate how you articulate and communicate. So thank you for your time.
I wish you the best of luck with your race. Indiana will be lucky to have you. And I appreciate your commitment to public service.
Thank you.